Then the one governor will go and do some kure appointment of 5 people, then they will come and be making congratulations. I did 48 in 1999. Nobody heard about it. When Obasanjo was going to do his board appointment, we asked him for the party's quota. We shared it into 2. He gave us 40% of all the boards to go and share in the party. I gave 48 federal board appointments in 1999 to Kwara State. No governor has not been able to do that. Till now. Every list they brought from every local government, I was in my office. Kunle Suleiman went to Inland Waterways. Nuru Mohammed went to one psychiatric hospital there. We made him chairman. Alhaji Shaba Jawabi was nominated as chairman of Federal Corps of Education Technical Akoka. Ajibola was nominated in the River Basin. I can tell you, everybody, I wrote it. You can't reconcile the fact that our soldiers are being chased around by bandits. Yes, this same Nigerian army restored peace in Sierra Leone, disbanded a rebel group and arrested their leader for the Sanko and imprisoned him in Nigerian police station. You will say
the same.
Or this army went to Liberia under a command and brought peace and democracy and disbanded all the rebel. How do you reconcile that? How do you reconcile the fact that this country gave financial aid to Dubai in 1973? How do you reconcile that? Now, but I'm telling you practical things that this country has done. In 1985, when there was a Chinoba leak, Babangida gave $100 million donation to Russia as solidarity. So this country is not a country. Nigeria is a serious country. But we have a generation of political leaders who have made us a laughing stock. But we can fix it.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, as I always like to say, wherever this meets you. Welcome to the Bridge Podcast. I am always happy to tell you that thank you for allowing us to grace your screens. So whether you're watching us from the screen of your laptop or from your phone, we are very, very happy that you chose to have us with you today. My name is Obasa Olubanke, and I'm going to be your host for today. As I always say on this podcast, we always come with you, or we always come to you with the best of the best and people of different important calibers. We're talking about people from the political sector, entertainment, writing, social media, you name it, we will always bring you the best of the best. This is the Bridge Podcast, and our mission is to connect and reconnect the disconnected. So whether you're connected from it or you're disconnected, we are here to bring you back to the right place and answer the questions you've always had on your mind about the people you see up there, how they got there, how they made it, their challenges, and how they were able to conquer it. I am not going to do this alone. I am always here with my co-host. He is my co-host, a man with several feathers that has been added to his cap, a wonderful and successful radio presenter. I'm talking about Mr. Bolaji, who is known as Galadima. How you doing?
Orílẹ̀ mọ́sábòdè kí n tó wọlé àgọ́ àlà ó ń bòdì ọ̀dà. Àjọ òṣùpá ni mí, mo sì wà lónìí tó wọlé. Ìbá gbogbo ẹ̀yin ládéládé ìbẹ̀yìn lóyè. Ìbá gbogbo ọ̀tọ̀ kò lóòlò pátápátá. Akíráwá àyọ̀ ẹnìkan lẹ̀ kán bọ́ ẹ̀kọ́ àlejò mú gbòǹgbò ní ẹ̀kọ́ àlejò ẹ̀ṣẹ̀. Ìpá àrókò ẹ̀kọ́ àlejò ọ̀dẹ̀. Ọlẹ́yìn ọlọ́ọ̀dẹ̀ yìí. Ibi owó ẹ̀ tí lábàdá ti máa wò wá lákòókò tá a wà yìí. Àárọ̀ ni, ọ̀sán ni, àlẹ́. Ẹ̀lẹ́ o, ẹ kú dédé àsìkò.
Galadima, your intros are always very, very beautiful. And if this is your first time or your first episode on this podcast, you might be shocked that we're speaking two different languages. And it is the routine here because this is Nigeria and we're going to be speaking our own languages. I am here for the official languages, English language, and I'm here for the audience who do not understand every other indigenous language. And he is going to be speaking. Now, as always, I told you, we always bring you the best of the best and the best guests. And we have a very important person with us today. Very, very important. I know that Galadima wants to do this introduction, but I must introduce him.
Don't tell me that.
Well, because I believe he's a global sensation, and because of my international audience. Because of my international audience, I have to do the honors. Well,
kó tó di international.
well, you're not going to stop me. This person.
Alẹ́ mi mo gbọ́dọ̀ ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ láti kọ́kọ́ gbé ìpìlẹ̀.
All right.
Ìbílẹ̀ ni wọ́n.
Okay, then I'm going to do the list of the introduction since you're going to start from history. I'm talking about this person. I'm talking about is a politician, is a human rights activist, is a successful man, is someone that's been able to cause a shift in everywhere he has been and every life he has impacted. I am talking about a wonderful person that in the moment his name is mentioned, many people can say one thing or two that he has done in their lives, even from afar. Even from afar. Should I continue? Should I continue? This man has taken so many places by storm, the internet by storm, because of the things he says that everybody finds very controversial, but then it's always the truth. No one stops him when he wants to say his mind and the truth. He is someone who never complains. He is a problem solver. He's someone who brings solution to everything. So, and that is why he is the founder of a wonderful foundation that has led to many successful feats in Kwara State and Nigeria at large. And then Galadima, you want to talk about him from Kwara State? I give you the honors. Introduce him, please.
So, lákòókò tá a wà yìí, ń ṣe àfihàn ẹni rere, ẹni ọlá, ẹni iyì láwùjọ. Ọlọ́lá wa, Dr. Gbenga Olawepo-Hashim. Ẹ kú dédé àsìkò yìí, sir.
Kú dédé àsìkò yìí.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Ṣé ìbínú pé ìjà bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe láàrin mi àti ẹ̀?
Ọlọ́run wọ̀ wá jẹ́ kí ṣàná ṣẹlẹ̀.
Ọbẹ̀ gbà yín mọ́ mi lọ́wọ́ ni. Ọbẹ̀ fi fẹ́ràn ìfẹ́ tí ń gbà yín mọ́ mi lọ́wọ́. Èmi ò sì ní jó gba fẹ́ràn ìfẹ́ tí ń gbà yín mọ́ mi lọ́wọ́.
Well, my audience, they need to know how far we have dug and how well we have come to bring him here, because we are talking about someone that was recognized by Amnesty International. Imagine. That is really great. And thank you, sir, for honoring us with your presence.
Nice
We're glad to have you here.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir. Bàbá bí ni à ń béèrè. Ọmọ ìlú wo nìyí, sir?
Nàìjíríà ni mi, ọmọ ìlú èyí tó bèrè yẹn ó tóbi púpọ̀.
Ọmọ orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà.
Ọmọ orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà ni mi. Tọ́ba sọ pé ìlú wo ni mo ti wá. Ọ̀rọ̀ ńlá ló bèrè yẹn. Torí bàbá tó bí mi lọ́mọ Kebbi ni.
Kebbi, bàbá tó bí mi lọ́mọ.
Kebbi State. Ìlú náà dẹ̀ bí mi sí nìyẹn. Yẹlúwà Yàwórí. Ìyá tó bí mi Ògbómọ̀ṣọ́ ni.
Ògbómọjúgún bí wọ́n ti ń jẹ kàkà tó mú kọ́ yẹn.
Fúnra mi gẹ́gẹ́ mo wá dàgbà sí Kwara.
Wow.
Ibẹ̀ mo ti ṣe secondary school, ibẹ̀ mo ti ṣe òṣèlú, ibẹ̀ mo ti ṣe oríṣiríṣi tí mo ti. Ibo ló wá fẹ́ sọ pé mo ti wá nǹkan náà, mo gbogbo Nàìjíríà rẹ̀.
Gbogbo Nàìjíríà nìyẹn nù.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
I want to believe that it is. It really shows your patriotism. That is why you're mentioning Nigeria at first. A lot of people will want to say they are from a particular place and then this, but you mentioning that you're Nigerian first. That means you take
we want
everybody.
to. We were raised as Pan-Africanists. We wanted to see all of Africa under one federation. That was our consciousness as activists. We were not looking at ourselves as Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and all that. When we were in the student movement, anytime we called out a protest in Nigeria, not like now, when we say we're going to have a protest on so dates, all institutions of higher learning will be part of it, from Kanu, Maiduguri, Calabar, Ilorin, simultaneously. And they listened to us. They listened to our leadership. I was on the International Union of Students representing All African Student Union. So you can't function at that level and still begin to see yourself as some provincial warlord. That's how we were raised. Our consciousness is quite different. And that was what was the consciousness of most of the early nationalists. And that's why you see that in the First Republic, a Bonu man will contest election as a Muslim in a Christian-dominated area, Hashim Ibrahim, and will run for House of Assembly in Benue State. I would win the election.
Mm.
So I think Nigeria was more united, greater in the past. And that's what we want to see Nigeria become. And so when you ask me, where are you from, self? My first thing to tell is to tell you I'm a Nigerian.
Nigeria.
That's the first most important thing. And this is the message I want to pass out there. We are greater and better together as Nigerians before we start talking about our various subnationalities.
Wow.
That's beautiful. So, sir, when you were talking about your background, you mentioned that you schooled in Kwara State. And to the best of our knowledge, we know that your secondary school was C&S
Yeah, I
College.
went to Cherubim and I was health prefect in CNS. I was
Health
president
prefect.
of Dramatic Society. I was very active.
Dramatical.
The Dramatic Society in CNS College. I was its president. I was also in the press club.
Wow.
Oh.
Yes, you know, we had a fantastic principal then, Baba Akintola,
Akintola.
and he raised us with very high values. He prepared us for the stage. We used to broadcast our secondary school students on the assembly ground, casting news as member of the press club. You know, I played handball. I was playing number 6, and we had many. So we were properly raised. You know, in that secondary school. Yeah.
Wow.
Nígbà tí ẹ kúrò ní secondary school CNS, bọ́ sí Kwara State Polytechnic.
It was not Polytechnic then. It was a Polytechnic
Kwara
now,
Tech.
remember, Kwara College of Technology.
Technology.
We had the School of Basic Studies, and I was General Secretary of Youth Solidarity on Southern Africa then.
Wow.
And we also had a very functioning press club in Kwara Tech then. The first thing students would do, we go to the complex, that massive building in the School of Basic Studies, and then you read handwritten articles in the morning before you go to your lecture room. All the articles we would write, we'll handwrite them, and then we'll paste them at the notice board. That was a reading culture. Every student, before going to your lecture room, you first go to the complex, the notice board there. Then you read handwritten articles. I wrote as V.I. Learning. There were those who wrote as Castro. There were those, Jide, who is in TVC now. Jide was writing as Bob Marley. That I wrote as Lenin. There was somebody who wrote as Jaggers, who wrote all those things. And then we would discuss varying issues. And then when Delegiwa was killed, I named that place Delegiwa Squad.
Oh.
Yeah.
You named...
And yes, that complex. And I think it's still Delegiwa Squad now. I don't know whether it has changed. But we named it Delegiwa Squad.
Wow. So, you went to Kwara College of Tech.
Yes.
And then you later advanced to University of...
Yeah, and I went to University of Lagos.
Was it because you sought for more education, or there was something you wanted?
No, I did School of Basic Studies. And naturally, School of Basic Studies just to prepare you as a foundation school for your university education. So we did 2 years and went to by direct entry. So if you did your IGMB in those days or your A-level HSC, then you will come in to the university at 200 levels, not at first year. You know. So I went to Unilag eventually, and I did mass comm. Unilag, when I did mass comm, there were only 2 universities in Nigeria that did mass comm. Unilag and Nsukka, and it was the very best students in arts and humanities. They were taken because you had limited spaces. We were just, I think we were 13 in my class.
13?
Just 13?
We were 13 in my class. And so you had to be, the mass comm entry point was the same as law. And so it must be for the highest grade. Because you had only 2 universities, Unilag or Nsukka, full stop. There was no Kano or anybody doing mass comm at that time. Yeah.
Sir, nígbà tí ẹ wà ní Unilag, ẹ dìbò kan mọ́ ẹ PRO.
Yeah, I was
But kí ló
fellow
máa
of NANS, not of Unilag,
Okay.
of National Association of Nigerian Students.
PRO lẹ dìbò yẹn?
Yes.
Lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ gbà nígbà yẹn nínú nǹkan tá a gbọ́ àwọn ambassador oríṣiríṣi máa ń dúró láti bá yín sọ̀rọ̀ láti.
No, you know, the student movement that time was like an alternate government
Wow.
in this country because it was a military government and we held the government accountable. The NANS, the academic staff of University Union, ASU, or majorly the NANS was like an alternate government. As in, you know, we would say to the military government, okay, we're going to protest and we'll shut down the country for like 2-3 weeks. And they will have to be saying we should come and dialogue. And then they will send the emirs and Oni of Ife to talk to us, that we should call off protests and have dialogue and all that. And the student movement of that era was also well organized globally. In such a manner that there were many international linkages. The IUS, International Union of Students, was very strong. World Federation of Democratic Youth was very strong, and were part of the global pro-democracy movement and agenda, the worldwide struggle against apartheid, worldwide struggle against nuclear armaments, you know, disarmament and all that. So, and these are basic issues for the foreign policies of most governments. So nobody would want, for instance, as a government to have a situation whereby there was an international conference and then maybe the students were pushing for some kind of resolution, because the IUS had an observer status at the United Nations at that time. So we were global voices in those eras. So it was not uncommon for you to have invitation from embassies. As a student union leader, I had presidential candidates who come and look for me in my hostel. We were not running after politician, because that was a serious era, not this era, you know.
Okay. Ìgbà wọn yàtọ̀ sí sí gidi gan.
No, really seriously. No. Look, for instance, you know, we had a coup in Nigeria then, the Oka coup against Babangida. And there was, that coup was nearly successful. And they established a provincial ruling government council and offered the National Association of Nigerian Students a seat in that as a member of the IS. That's to tell you. And that was the pattern in those eras, whether it was a revolution or it was Rawlings that did something, they would. The student movement was not just a student movement, it was a very serious, group. But we declined to participate and the coup collapsed. You know, some students wanted to join, we said no. And the basic reason was they wanted to dismember the country. We didn't like that aspect that they were talking about excising a certain portion of Nigeria. We were Pan-Africanists, we love Nigeria dearly. And you couldn't have risen at that level to be a student union leader at a level of Nance in my era, and you still having some parochial consciousness. Or even labor movement. The cadres of those eras were well trained. You know, well trained. A very serious student union leader at that time could be a governor of a state. I'm telling you. In any case, in the early period of military rule, people who were some of them who are military administrators and governors, like this Spiff of Rivers, was just 24 years. You know, Gowon was 29 years when she became. So they are not like people who are having so much age grab of distance from even the students you were talking about who were student leader in those their own.
Wow.
a very progressive student movement there was like an alternate government, really.
That is very intriguing to hear.
I mean, I was meeting many presidents of different countries when I was just barely 21.
Could you please mention some of those?
I was guest to Kim Il Sung, the grandfather of the president of North Korea. I was in the demarcation line in the DMZ in North Korea, between North and South Korea, where you have all the nuclear bombs and all that. And when I went to North Korea as a delegate, I was a special delegate. Number one, I didn't have a visa. All right. Number two, an international flight had to be stopped because I was coming and could not fly because I had to take that flight. All right, and I had a military aide, guarding me. So this is a different ball game. And then when I was in Ghana, I was guest of Jerry Rollins. I stayed in the State House guest house. So this is how, at the level we operate, and that's why there's a level now that you cannot go below, because we were talking about things we were doing 30-something years ago.
And you were mentioning all the things that you, I want to use the word committed, because it sounds like you really shook the students' environment. Let me put it that way. You said you mentioned
the student movement was the main issue in the mid 80s. Late 80s to early 90s.
I want to actually mention a particular incident that was recorded around 1986, 87. There was something that happened that you shut down the school. And you did it because you actually mentioned that. And I was going to say, could you please tell me about one of
86,
that? 86, 87.
86 students were killed in ABU's area. The police broke into hostels, shot some students, because they wanted to close down the school forcefully on the invitation of the Vice Chancellor, then Professor Ango Abdullahi. So the nuns called a solidarity protest. And let me tell you very interesting stories so that you understand the student movement of that.
Please.
The military administrator of Kwara, we had the Senate meeting of nuns in Kwara here.
Okay, sir.
And it was a very tense period. Before the Senate meeting, we had this massive protest. The nuns we called solidarity protest. So we had to march on May 27th was the Children's Day.
Wednesday.
We marched from that permanent site of College of Tech.
Yeah,
Kwara College of Tech. We marched in the rain for, I think it's like 9 kilometers or so, to NTA. Okay. We're going to NTA to go and make a broadcast to condemn the killing of the
while it was raining.
And then at that Greek junction, some police came, dispersed us, we regrouped again, we still made our way, and all that. And so, before you knew it, there was curfew in town. The military administrator declared
because of students.
Curfew.
Really?
There was curfew, and then we were going to have a Senate meeting, and the administrator said, no Senate meeting will take place in Kwara. You know, we had that Senate meeting.
Even after they said you shouldn't have
where
it.
we had the Senate meeting.
Why and how were you able
where
to
we had
make
the
it
Senate
happen?
meeting. We had the Senate meeting in Herald newspaper.
The
Just
newspaper
some few
building.
meters, few steps to the office of the military administrator, the military governor. That was where we had it. And nobody knew how. We smuggled all the delegates into Herald editorial board. But because our comrades were progressive, like Dapo, Ilorin, Ladi Abdulaziz, they were the ones who were running Herald at that time. We had it in the editorial boardroom.
Wow.
That's what it was. The most unlikely place that anybody could
Sort of.
could imagine.
Yes, sir. Nínú àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́ sọ kalẹ̀ nísìnyí bíi ọgbọ̀n ọdún síwájú sẹ́yìn.
1986 is 39 years, almost 40.
Yes.
Almost 40. Bí ọgbọ̀n ọdún sẹ́yìn,
39 years.
close to 40 years. Lẹ ti ń bá àjìjàngbara bọ̀ wá, business, òṣèlú, lẹ ti ń bá bọ̀ wá. Báwo ni ó gba àwọn ọgbọ́n òye tẹ́ ń rí mú bẹ́ẹ̀ ẹyọkọ̀ọ̀kan kó ló sì fún yín lọ́jọ́ iwájú orílẹ̀-èdè?
Well, you know, gẹ́gẹ́ bí mo ṣe sọ, ibi táwa ti wọ àwọn ipò tá à ń dìbò ń gbà yẹn, ẹ̀kọ́ púpọ̀ wà. Irúkọ tó di pé òun di student union leader ń gbà yẹn, àkọ́kọ́ jẹ́ mẹ́bà àwọn group kan ní tech tá à ń pè ní Youth Thinkers Club.
Youth
Thinkers Club.
Àwọn tí oníròrí jinlẹ̀ nù.
Àwọn ọmọdé tí wọ́n ń ronú jinlẹ̀.
Oníròrí jinlẹ̀.
Now, the Youth Thinkers Club were progressive students on campus. We used to meet every week. You have an agenda in that meeting. Number one, state of the nation. You discuss the nation. 2, you'll have book review. So there will always be a book either in economics, political history, international relations. Somebody would be a lead presenter, will review a book, and everybody will critique that review. So there will always be something to learn from a presentation. Then there will be a paper presentation. And after that, we will now discuss international relations, any other business. We did that every week. So as a 17-year-old kid, yes,
Wow.
I have more than 300 books in my library. And I read Marx on political economy, I read Ilorin, I read everything, I read, and then you read even military treaties of people like Zuko, of Mao Zedong, on guerrilla warfare, you have read. So these were literatures on warfare, military history, international politics, relations, apart from political economy. So you were well trained. You could hold discussion on any aspect of human endeavor, even the sciences and what have you. We had this was not about the curriculum of the school. This was the curriculum of the Youth Thinkers Club. The aim of the Youth Thinkers Club was to raise people who are basically philosophers, in every aspect of life. So this was the first training ground for you. So the very best of those people in the Youth Thinkers Club and who also had courage, apart from just being bookish, were the people we sent into the student movement. So when you are meeting a student union leader, you are meeting a man who could be a president.
He's well-read and profound in everything he does. Okay.
You understand? And so it was not just my own case. It was the general case, the way we trained the student movement. And this was a culture that started during the anti-colonial struggle, the struggle for independence. You had young Zikists in those days, like Raji Abdallah, Saadu Zungu, Makugo Okoye. These people were trained in that tradition, and then they will be sent to the Nkrumah Academy in Ghana, and from there some of them went to Moscow. So it was that tradition, that the student movement built on, and the labor movement as well. So if you saw labor leaders like people like Alhaji Hassan Sumonu of those era, they are not like the labor leaders of this. I'm sorry to say, they were people who could be president of any nation. By virtue of their training, you know, and the depth of their understanding, you were not just meeting a small shop worker. No. Well-trained people. Likewise, people who were in the media, you know, in those areas. And that's why you notice that whether it was the struggle against military rule or the anti-colonial struggle that led to the independence of this country, the most active contingents were labor, student, and the media.
Wow.
So it was well-organized thing. Now, one of the reasons why we have a lot of lack of content in today's politics is the collapse of all those training structures. So now people are political leaders just because they have plenty of money and they can give out and call meetings and they become political leaders. They don't have any clarity, they don't have any perspective, they have not studied anything, they don't even have basic understanding of how society should be organized. So and that's why you have so much chaos in politics. That was not the case before. Political leaders were well trained, leaders of mass organization were well trained, and it produced quality politics that was driven by values. And that's why you would see, if you go into history between 1955 and 1965, when you had the first coup, Nigerian economy was growing so seriously. Nigerian economy was more advanced than even Malaysia, Thailand. We had the same GDP at that time. Nigeria was first in many respects. You know, Nigeria was the leading light among the third world countries. It was the rising star of Africa. Strong economy, disciplined workforce. You know, Nigeria was producing chief justices for countries like Botswana.
Wow.
They were sent from Nigeria to be chief justice in Botswana. Akelagoda was the chief justice of Botswana. He was sent from Nigeria there. Nigeria was producing Inspector General of Police for different African countries. They were sent from here. Our universities were the best in the world. People came here to work. The economy was so strong that people would leave their country to come and take employment in Nigeria. Even when I went to CNS College, my maths teacher was an Indian, Mr. Na. The teacher who taught me integrated science, Mrs. Nair, was an Indian. In our hospitals, we have people from medical doctors from Northern Ireland and all that, who took employment in Nigeria. Now, this country is not like all this shit you are seeing. No. Nigeria is a very great country. We have only suffered some reversal, and there will be restoration. I had believed in this country because of the way I was trained. I was involved from a very young age, and I inherited the best tradition of the politics of this country. So, if you look at that, you know that we will overcome. This is our worst era in our history as a people. The very worst era. But we can overcome it because there is still a reservoir of energy, you know, that has not been destroyed.
I would like to put a pin in the last sentence you made, or the last paragraph, because I would like to come back to it.
Yeah.
There's something that is there's a statement you made that it was very similar some years ago that came up again, and people are talking about it recently. So let's put a pin in that, because I still want to. We are very interested in how you went from being a student activist, let me use the word activist, and someone who was shaking things up, then to how you landed in politics. How it was very easy to transition, as you did mention, but what was the first step that took you into politics? How did you get there?
No, it was deliberate, because you can only assume political power either you are elected or you make a coup or you make a revolution.
And
all right, those are the only three ways to assume political power. And if you don't assume political power, you cannot authoritatively
Is it?
exercise, power in a legitimate way.
Oh, yeah.
So, uh, democracy was what we subscribed to, the way of elections. And so naturally, I have to be in politics. If I aspired to affect society in a positive manner, uh, in a way in which I would want to exercise authority and translate policy, to instrument of social change. You can only do that by participating in politics. And even from since I was a kid, I was always in politics by pasting poster for C.O. Adebayo and all those people in 1983. In 1983, we were doing all those things for UPN. We're posting posters. We made patterns on our head like that of CO. Then we'll be shouting CO, CO, CO over time. That was participating in politics. And then during the military, when Abacha was talking about formation of party, we formed National Democratic Labour Party. I was the National Publicity Secretary. So if you say my first involvement in politics at very grassroots level was when we were young people shouting CO at the local level.
So that first, the political party, that was what was your, should I say, the first mature attempt or
National Democratic Labour Party, yeah.
And then after that?
After NDLP, then we formed the PDP. I was the first Democratic Labour Party, the first publicity secretary of the PDP. Now, as a matter of fact, the day before Abacha died, we had started the whole process. I was working with the Institute for Civil Society, put together by Dr. Alex Ekweme, Chief Solomon La, and then Alhaji Abubakar was already imprisoned in Ilorin prison by Abacha. Over opposition to Abacha's self-succession plan. Abacha wanted to transmute from being a military president to a civilian president. And so he registered some party, he didn't register our own party, and were opposed to his self-transmutation agenda. So we were meeting quietly. There were other people, Nadeko and Co, who were abroad. They were largely abroad. They were not active inside Nigeria. But we were active here in Nigeria, in Abuja specifically. So the day Abacha died, myself, Dan Wayao, and late Pascal Bafia, the former president of NLC, we wrote a memo on the way forward for the transition to democracy. And we had to go and submit this to the military high command. And the military were in faction. They were struggling, was going to be president. Bamiri surrounded himself with armor tank. There were other people with their own boys. They were all moving in camps. So we had to go to Fort IBB where they were moving tanks that night. I went with Dan Waya, we took that document. I remember as we approached Fort IBB, there was a loud shout. "Stop! The chief is coming!" from a loud speaker. And everybody swabbed.
Isolate.
You had to face the bush. And then the lights from these tanks were on. And everywhere was well lit like we're in the afternoon. And there was, if you dropped a pin, you were going to find it that night. So I asked them, I said, "What is this?" They said, "Don't worry, that's Bamiri coming. It's the chief. That's the chief." They said the chief is coming, chief of army staff. They didn't say chief of army staff, they said the chief is coming. So, and then after a while, they removed their road clothes. And then we radioed him on this 090 phone and then he said we should come in. We went there. He didn't even offer us a seat. We were just going up and down radios were blaring and taking messages. Hey, where's the paper? Where's the paper? Okay, we gave him the paper. And then luckily, 90% of our recommendation was contained in the final broadcast. We recommended that the National Electoral Commission, the NECON, should be changed to independent. We named INEC. We said we didn't want the repeat of government interference in the election, and that INEC should have its money first line charge on the consolidated revenue account, not to be subjected to budgetary processes of the executive, so that it could have enough money to plan its own and be independent. Then we also said that the position of INEC commissioner and chairman should be advertised, not picked by the president. They accepted every other thing. The only thing they rejected was advertising the position. They said no, that they will pick the INEC chairman. That was the only thing they rejected in our recommendation. That thing they rejected is still the problem of Nigeria democracy today, where the executive interferes in INEC as it wills and all that. But they are now financially independent, courtesy of some of those agitations and the recommendations that were made that particular time. But that night, the country's life was at the balance. And we took a great risk. Civilians in military barrack carrying documents around 1 a.m. where the soldiers were moving tanks and we didn't have any pistol. You know?
I am really curious. How old were you that time and the age range of the people who went with you?
Well, before I answer your age, I conquered fear a long time ago.
That's what my question was going to lead to, because where
I conquered. No. We were never afraid, I faced protests where, look, I'll come back to that question. I was talking about the night Oka made coup in Benin. We were in Benin there at the last secretary. That was 22nd. I had already left Nance, so I handed over to Bamidele Okoyemi. By the way, Bamidele is now the Senate leader. He was Nance president, and our ESCO handed over to. That's when Benin and Oka made a coup and was making a broadcast. I had offered Nance a seat, but they had excised some northwest state from Nigeria. And some students were already excited. They even made a map. Minus Nigeria minus those northwest states. And we made when we had a long meeting, some of us stakeholders who had come to consult with Okpe and his would say, what are you going to do with this school? We can't support this school. No. Yes, we have our issues with Babangida and all that. But we cannot support people who want to dismember Nigeria, excising some states. But Oka already made they were still like, they had shot Babangida's ADC, UK Bello. They had been killed. They had taken over Federal Radio Corporation. And interestingly, most of the people who participated in that coup were from Benin. Some of them were even on Uniben campus. And then we had to make a rally because they were instigating students to come out and demonstrate in support of the coup. And they had made maps and all that. And we were taking a decision against a coup that was still in progress, that nobody knew whether it was going to collapse or not. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Wow. So but it was also difficult to even affect the decision because some students were emotional. They were already saying, no. Oka and coach will be supported. If you don't support them, Babangida will come back. He will crush these boys. Let's make the protest. Say, no, there won't be any protest here. So Bamidele went to address them as Nance president. They didn't listen to him. Look again, no one. So Bamidele called me and said, comrade, I have to bring you up now. You are the hero of the anti-SAP. They love you. They respect you. If you come up, maybe you can pass this message. It's a very difficult one. So I climbed. He brought me up. I climbed the first one. Great Nigerian students. Nigerian students have a right to rejoice that at the end of the day, a faction of the military is doing what we want done, challenging the Babangida dictatorship. Hey, they said, hey. So I went to the next point. You have a reason to celebrate because you are the hero of this process. Last year, you spilled your blood on the streets. Many died. Oh, yeah. Say, but this is not the first time we are hearing a military broadcast. That was what led to Nigeria to a civil war. And at the end of the day, it was the children of the poor that died. The children of the rich on both sides did not go to war.
Yeah.
They profited from it. They calmed down a bit. Then I just started, what are these guys saying? Then I started tearing down Oka's speech. And then those who had maps dropped their maps.
Immediately.
Immediately. But it was a very bold risk because. And then Colonel Adeleke seized the radio station, a Babangida loyalist, and in Benin, and he was making a counter-coup broadcast. And the students were saying, no, they wanted to go and stomp that radio station. So I had to calm them down. I had to demobilize them. That was our position. And then immediately we made a statement condemning the coup, and we dispatched it to all the media and all that. Now, however, the coup collapsed.
Okay.
But it was a great
risk.
So I'm telling you that in those era, there was no fear in our body.
For a long time.
You understand? And when we went on protest in 1989, they had barricaded Unilag with APC armor personnel carrier. And that was, Unilag, behind was like, you have the lagoon. And every other place, you could only, when they close the main gate in Unilag, except you want to swim through the lagoon. The only way you can come out of that gate is, and they closed the gate, so we had to do rally. For 4 hours, we were addressing them from like 1 a.m. until around 5, that we're going to protest. And we will go through that gate. And I remember my deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Adalema, he came, Gbenga, what are you doing with my students? I said, we're protesting, sir. Through which gate? This gate, where you have APC, Gbenga, you want to kill my students? And then before it started, before he finished, the shots started coming.
Okay.
Now, but we had both boys in that, and they had gone to the laboratory. Some of them had made petrol bombs. And they just released petrol bombs on those. Bang, 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 bang. Yes, Molotov cocktail. And then they abandoned the gates, moved back. Their APC were in the street. Before you knew it, they came with helicopters. They were firing shots. But the whole city was already now in motion for protest. That protest was on in Nigeria for 3 weeks. The military could not break it.
Against students.
The other people from town had joined and all that. So, by the time we got to shoot, they were shooting from helicopters. So, I had confronted tanks, APC, in my life many years, and we're not wearing amulet or all this.
Anything, just.
It was just raw courage. But thank God, I was never shot.
Wow.
Not even once.
What? Not even once.
How do you
And I was always in the front.
How do you escape this, sir?
God.
I am more
He just preserved me.
I am more curious on how the students were able to have so much faith in you to listen to you.
No, because that time, they knew you were transparent now.
So it's just.
And before we went on protests, we had many rallies while we were going to protest. There have been, we used to publish even newspaper, Solidarity. We used to do newsletter, I would have, and there was no telephone like this, so you had to print everything. And people had to read, or you write them and place them
I
on
place
notice
them
board.
everywhere.
And people would,
Yes, sir.
people would read them.
Ẹ jẹ́ kí n dá yín padà wá síbi
Yes.
Nigeria economy.
Yes.
Ẹ gbé láti bẹ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ dá yín padà síbẹ̀. Ẹ sọ̀rọ̀ nípa Nigeria economy lẹ́ẹ̀kan. Kí lẹ rò pé ó jẹ́ àwọn challenges wa ní Nigeria economy? Kí lẹ ṣe rò pé ó lè jẹ́ solution fún?
I mean, looking at how the educational system was, you used that as a solid example of how Nigeria was thriving then.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it just seems like everything fell apart. Most of us, we didn't even get to experience all these things. So what could have gone wrong and what could be better?
The economy was being industrialized in the period of limited self-government. Most of the proceeds from cocoa, groundnuts, were invested in building industry. Ilupeju Industrial Estate, Agbara Industrial Estate. In the north, they were building textile factory by the Northern Development Corporation. All right. The only way you can solve mass unemployment is to be an industrialized country. Then, because you need people to be engaged in the factories, you need people to turn, whether they are agricultural raw material or they are solid minerals, to turn them as raw materials to industry. You feed the industry with those things. Then you can create job on a mass scale. Then when you are industrialized and you have created job on a mass scale, then money is created to handle social services. If you say you want to do education, you have to pay the bill from somewhere.
Yes.
So if there is no industry and there is no economy first, you cannot do any education. You can't do any social services, whether it is health or whatever. You cannot even have enough taxable income. You can't tax people who are not working, who are already poor. It's not possible.
Until ní.
Ẹ lè ní káláìní máa san tax. Aláìní òun gan sàdákà ló nídìí.
Miskini gangan lọ gẹ́gẹ́. Àtẹ́wọ́gbọrẹ ni.
Àtẹ́wọ́gbọrẹ láláìní ẹ lè wá máa ní kó máa san tax.
Níbo ló ti fẹ́ rí?
Ẹ lè tax èèyàn tó bá níṣẹ́ lápá. Ẹ lè tax the industry. So if you have not, first of all, funded industry as a government, you cannot have anything to tax. So that's the logic. There must be industry before there can be taxable income. And that's why in a depressed economy, the first thing government will do is to finance economic activity on a mass scale. Nigeria economy started becoming bullshit when banks stopped making money available for the real sector, which is industry, agric, and solid minerals. Before, the principal objective of the financial institution in the country was to provide resources to establish industry. Okay?
I get you.
That's why in the 70s you could see singers in Samara where they are making, Ilorin candor in Idoro, Machko, Philip Morris, Tate and Lie. In this Ilorin, in those days, I could tell you all those Jepa Peppermint and all those things.
The sugar
So
factory.
both government and the financial institution, the private sector, was financing. So if you don't finance industrialization, there cannot be sustainable employment, and you cannot collect any tax to fund social service. So the basic problem of the Nigerian economy, particularly from the early 90s, was the collapse of industrialization and the near absence of finance for the real sector. That's the beginning of the problem.
ìdí tí ń bàjẹ́ bá ọ̀nà.
Nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní èyí tó kókó bẹ̀ nìyẹn.
báwo ìjọ náà ọ̀nà àbáyọ rẹ̀ sà.
ọ̀nà àbáyọ náà ni pé kẹ́yìn àwọn lórí wọn pé tí wọ́n mọ̀ bí wọ́n á ṣe finance industrialization. Kì í ṣe àwọn tó mọ̀ wọ́n ṣe ń gba owó lọ́wọ́ aláìní àgbà lọ́wọ́ mẹ́rì.
Your belief in industrialization, is that what you had in mind when you made the statement that $4 trillion GDP could be achieved in 10 years? That's an old video, though. But sometime the first week of let's say the last week of January to the first week of February, somehow it just resurfaced and everybody has been talking about it because they said if less attention was paid to the energy sector or oil and more was focused on solid minerals and agriculture and industrialization, that could be achieved. Now that's an old video. And from everything
I'm not even saying we
mentioned,
should pay less attention to oil and gas.
it
Oil
shouldn't
and
be
gas
as much as it's not the only thing.
Is important, but it should drive industrialization. You know, we didn't have a thriving oil and gas industry before, but we had massive industry.
Yes.
From revenue from cocoa and granite. So when we started making money from oil and gas, we should also continue. But we're not even making good money from oil and gas. It's a question of an inefficient ruling elite.
Okay.
You know, because we have not even made the best opportunity from oil and gas. Because imagine, Nigeria is 200 million population. We are struggling to produce 1.6 million barrels of oil per day. Saudi Arabia, a country of about 50 million plus people, they are having 12 million barrels production per day. Qatar, a country of 300,000 people, because that's their own population, about 350,000.
Yeah,
if you say there are 5 million, it's just foreigners that are there.
Yes.
They have 4 million barrels in gas equivalent per day. And Nigeria, 200 million people, you are producing 1.6 million. So what oil and gas are we involved in? It's just bullshit. We've not had very serious-minded people for a while. And if you look at that 1.6 million barrels that Nigeria is producing daily, about 50% of them, they are coming from Bonga, Ejina, Agbami, deep sea investment that Babangida made in the late 80s, and the LNG. You ask yourself what has been done in 20-something years of return to civil, practically nothing.
Can't even find it.
So, the oil and gas that we're doing is not even efficiently managed. We have not taken advantage of the best, and unfortunately, it has a short lifespan because maybe in the next 20 years, that is going to be an irrelevant sector in the global economy. People are talking about the new energy.
Yes.
That is going to
renewable
be
and sustainable.
By sustainable energy. And up till Trump came back, you couldn't even find money to do any oil and gas investment. But now Trump likes it and all that, but we don't know how it will last for about 4 years maximum. And then you go back to people who will be talking renewable again, and nobody is going to be even interested. And they even punish investment in that sector. They call it dirty investment and dirty oil and all those kind of stuff. So we have to be serious as a people. Nigerians have to be serious as a people. I think we're trifling a lot. You know, we're underestimating the depth of the problem that we have. We have not faced the economic crisis with the political seriousness that it deserves. Not just on the part of the politician alone, even people who make conversations, I think people enjoy a lot of entertainment these days. And what is happening is not comical at all. It's a huge tragedy.
So you do believe that if you do believe that you can, if the structure was, well, let me say the reins were placed in your hands, you can build a structure to raise a GDP that is that achievable in 10 years?
Look, I didn't say anything that was
Impossible?
impossible, because even PwC had projected that in 2014, the way Nigeria was growing, that by 2030, Nigeria would have about 4 trillion.
About
4 trillion. So what just happened was that process was derailed. Okay, so they were making a projection about 15 years. But if you had a serious government that knew what to do in 10 years or less than 10 years, you will achieve that. So this was a study done by PwC. They did it on their own. Not Gbenga Olawepo-Hashim, whatever. So now I get it that this generation has never seen anything good. And for them, talking about something good like a $4 trillion economy is a near impossibility. They have never seen anything good since anybody in between 45 years downward. They have never seen anything good. And so anything good that you talk about is like a mirage. These people are talking about impossible things. And the wicked people who are ruling Nigeria feed on that cynicism and pessimism to force themselves on the consciousness of people. So, I mean, by default, people who don't believe in the possibility of change good settle for evil, because they are not even driven by any passion for anything good. So they can easily compromise and easily say, well, after all, whatever we do, still going to be this. So anything can go for them. But if you have seen what we saw, as you were a graduate and you left the university, same year you got automatic job, and same year you got a car loan to buy a brand new car from Pojo in Kaduna. I'm sure you would think I'm talking about some fairy tales that never happened in Nigeria.
Yes.
It did happen. You understand? And then you got a Volkswagen. Okay, you can't reconcile the fact that our soldiers are being chased around by bandits in Nigeria. Yet this same Nigerian army restored peace in Sierra Leone, disbanded a rebel group and arrested their leader for the Sanko and imprisoned him in Nigerian police station. You will say,
the same.
Or this same army went to Liberia under Ecomonk and brought peace and democracy and disbanded all the rebel. How do you reconcile that? How do you reconcile the fact that this country gave financial aid to Dubai in 1973? How do you reconcile that? Now, but I'm telling you practical things that this country has done. In 1985, when there was a Chernobyl leak, Babangida gave $100 million donation to Russia as solidarity. So this country is not a yeye country. Nigeria is a serious country. But we have a generation of political leaders who have made us a laughing stock. But we can fix it.
Yes, sir. Ẹ sọ̀rọ̀ kẹ́lẹ̀ kan, ẹ ní ẹ wà nínú àwọn tó fi di PDP múlẹ̀.
Yes.
Gẹ́gẹ́ bí kò tẹ́ dì mú nínú ẹgbẹ́ PDP nígbà yẹn tẹ́ kópa ribiribi pẹ̀lú gbogbo bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe wàhálà lórí ẹ̀. So now padà change sí APC. So kí ni
Lẹ́rí PDP tá a dálẹ̀ gbà yẹn, nǹkan ní PDP tó wà lóde nísìn.
ọkọ̀ lọ́yàtọ̀ ni
nǹkan oríṣiríṣi nǹkan ti ṣẹlẹ̀ àti pé àti PDP o àti APC gbogbo ẹ̀ kan fẹ́rẹ̀ má nítumọ̀ kankan báyìí nísìn nítorí kò sí ẹgbẹ́
àti PDP
àti APC gbogbo àwọn ẹgbẹ́ yẹn gan kò sí kan nínú wọn tó nítumọ̀ àfihàn tí ó bá wà ń bẹ̀ ṣá bóyá àwọn èèyàn míì nítumọ̀ síra wọn nítorí pé bí wọ́n ṣe ń ṣe ẹgbẹ́ kọ́ lẹ́ wọ́n ṣe àwọn ẹgbẹ́ tó wà lẹ̀ àwọn ẹgbẹ́ tó jẹ́ pé ẹnìkan ló ní wọ́n àwọn ẹgbẹ́ tó jẹ́ pé àwọn kan kékeré kan ló ń pàṣẹ bá ṣe dá PDP lẹ́ẹ̀kan yẹn náà nígbà tó dá PDP lẹ̀ even Ọbásanjọ́ tó jẹ́ president kò lè sọ nǹkan tó fẹ́ ṣẹlẹ̀ ní ẹnìkan irú ilé ìtàn kan fìdí fowó kún epo tí wọ́n bà dọ́là jẹ́ ẹgbẹ́ ò ní ọ̀rọ̀ kan gbogbo nǹkan tí wọ́n ń ṣe nísìnyí wọ́n fẹ́ ṣe ní 1999 Ọbásanjọ́ kò rí ṣe ni jẹ́ fi example kan fún ẹ ìgbà ní 1999 Ọbásanjọ́ fowó kún epo báyìí náà ni so àwọn labour wa bẹ̀rẹ̀ strike London Adam Oshiomhole ó ní president NSC gbà yẹn ó wá pé strike pàtó bẹ̀rẹ̀ strike àwa ní party mo lè wà láwọn àwọn national executive committee èmi ní chairman group of 54 NEC members èmi mo dá group yẹn lẹ̀ so àwọn governors wà ń bẹ̀ okay àwọn chairman party gbogbo wọn wà ń bẹ̀ so mo wá a lọ ṣe meeting mo lọ bá Alhaji Roda Musa who was deputy chairman torí mo ní pé a lè gba increase in fuel price yìí pé àìsàn ń lọ sí democracy ní àlè má fi àjẹ àwọn èèyàn wa ń gbọ́dọ̀ ní lárí kan tán rí inú democracy kíkàn sí pa kàn wá bẹ̀rẹ̀ ká ilé láti wá bẹ̀rẹ̀ àlegbà so a lọ bá Gẹ̀mádé ní àkùtọ̀ kò sọ́wọ́ ń bẹ̀ àmọ́ tá a bá ti lè tó bá wù wá ká lọ sí àwa pe meeting Harry Marshall who was vice chairman ó wà ń bẹ̀ Abubakar Magaji vice chairman gbogbo àwọn vice chairman wọ́n jò gbogbo àti even public secretary Beshi we addressed the press conference that the party dissociates itself from the increase in price and that the president should go and reverse it because that is not the president not the position of the party and it's not part of our program to increase fuel price. Adams bought all the newspaper and then the National Assembly passed a resolution both houses House of Reps and Senate against increase in fuel price. Adams packed all the newspaper. He went to the villa and Obasanjo started the negotiation. He said, Mr. President, who are you representing? The PDP says the fuel increase is not their party policy. National Assembly said the same. Who are you representing? Obasanjo packed all the paper. He gave it to Ufot Kaite. He said, yeah, go and sort it out. He reversed himself. He didn't increase fuel price. He changed his position that day. The problem you have in Nigeria now is that you don't have any party. You don't have any party. You don't have human beings running those parties. Otherwise, Nigeria will not be like this. It was not that Obasanjo did not want to do this. What Tinubu has done, he has done what no military head of state was able to do. He has done what Obasanjo was not able to do. They have always wanted to do this thing, but because of the strength of the institutions, they were restrained. But there is no restraint anymore. You understand what I'm talking? That time when we go to NEC meeting, Baba will come and say, Baba, no, this is not our party policy. We cannot take this. As a matter of fact, let me tell you something. Okay, sir. You followed me to see Colonel Are the other day. It was DGSSS. Before they will go for NEC meeting, he will invite me and say, Gbenga, what is possible, what is not possible? This one is not possible. Don't even bring it to NEC meeting. We have to have pre-discussion. Then I'll have a meeting with Baba. I say, Baba, this one is not possible. This one is not possible. We will not take it. You know, the NEC will not take it. And if they try to smuggle it, I will raise up my mind. I say, no, Mr. President, we won't have this, we won't have this. So, you didn't have all those things. But you see, we could do that because we're not looking for contract from Mr. President. We're not looking to be appointed by Mr. President. And in fact, we gave out appointment because they respected the party more. They were afraid of the party. When Obasanjo was going to do his board appointment, we asked him for the party's quota. We shared it into two. He gave us 40% of all the boards to go and share in the party. I gave 48 federal board appointments in 1999 to Kwara State. I was not governor. No governor has not been able to do that.
Till now.
Till now. Every list they brought from every local government was in my office. Kunle Suleiman went to inland waterways. Nuru Mohammed went to one psychiatric hospital there. We made him chairman. Alhaji Shaba Jawabi was nominated as chairman of Federal Corps of Education Technical Akoka. Ajibola was nominated in the River Basin. I can tell you, everybody, I wrote it. That was party. So there's no party now. And one governor will go and do some kure appointment of 5 people, then they will come and be making congratulations. I did 48 in 1999. Nobody heard about it. So you don't have party. There's no party. Parties are never run like this. You have people just sitting there in their rooms and saying they're having party. When did they have their next meeting? Not talk about any vigorous... this is not democracy. This is not what we fought for.
Is that why when you ran for presidency, you did it from a different party entirely than what people would have expected? People's trust party.
Yeah. Then we just wanted to speak to the country and prick the conscience of the country. You know, it was more of testing the water, but next time it's going to be serious business. It's not going to be just testing the water. We're very experienced people. We fought the military, and we're not doing so from exile. Some people who are writing books about what they did for democracy, they were drinking cognac in foreign embassy. We were there in the military barracks the night Abacha died. I'm afraid.
Wow. Are there some things you could share with us on the reason you chose to run for presidency then? And why you are saying that you will still run again?
Definitely I will run. The time we will get into the ring, on what party platform, by the grace of God, God will let us know. It will show us the proper direction. But you see, we understand how a modern country should be run. And we don't have the problem of parochialism that most presidents have suffered from. Picking people from your ethnic group. You asked me where I come from. I told you my dad.
That's what means, Kebbi.
My mother, Yoruba. Half of my siblings are Muslim, half are Christian. Who am I going to favor? And who am I going to discriminate against? You have some people, all their life experience from one region. So it's also a problem. Okay, so if you are going to run a multi-ethnic democracy, you have to pick a president that can share the concern of everybody, not just a parochial section of the country. There is that problem. We have been producing leaders who are more provincial leaders promoted to become president. You understand? Nigeria needs a true Nigerian president to lead it in the democratic era, to be able to enjoy some stability, justice, equity, and all that. Nigeria needs an empathetic leader. You can't be telling people who are poor to be making sacrifice all the time, and you people are using the money to buy private jets, and you are saying people who are poor should make sacrifice. It's wickedness. There is no big English about it. You understand? If you were asking me why people would follow us to face armor tanks with their bare hands,
yes,
because they trusted us. People are easy to lead once there is trust
And they know you have their interest at heart.
And you don't command trust, you earn it. All right?
Yes, sir.
You earn it. You don't command it. You don't impose it. You don't, you don't coerce people. People, they were not dollars. These were university students. They knew that APC can kill somebody, and they were following us.
It's a Gbenga Olawepo Foundation.
Yeah.
Gbenga Olawepo Foundation. Àti ń gbọ́ tipẹ́tipẹ́ ṣeun mèremère lóríṣiríṣi. Kí ni nǹkan tó dá lé lórí gẹ́gẹ́ sá?
Well, it's just philanthropy, really, to give back to society from the pool of what God, and to show some empathy. And we have been doing this for more than 2 decades, and I can't be listing all that now. You are familiar with all of them: economic empowerment, through micro grants. I won't call them micro credits because we've not been running loans that we collect the money back. Basically, what we have been doing is to give people help to start them up. And then when we see your seriousness, then we can move to the next stage of credit, because you have now established a business culture. Then you can now access credit, And so that's what we've been doing, and we have done for thousands of people. We have sponsored over 1,000 young people in digital acquisition skills, to acquire digital skills so that they can participate, in the digital economy globally, and hand some revenue directly for themselves instead of being idle. So we have done quite a lot, in that space. But I must emphasize that, well, charity is giving back voluntarily, but it's not enough. What we need is to put in place a government that will give people their due and their rights and govern well constitutionally. And government should not be paying charity, like giving people rights, going about and palliative. You cannot, that's bullshit. People by rights should have good education. Like in England, not just in England, Awolowo ran free education. Jakande ran free education in Lagos. So government cannot be doing palliative.
Right.
That's failure of governance. Government should put in policies that should make people earn income legitimately, not to be helping them. Government does not help people. Government should do its duty, not to help people. It's charity organization that provide help. So whatever government does is duty, and they should not be thanked for it.
Fún Gbenga Olawepo Foundation, àwọn olókoòwò kéékèèké ràn wọ́n lọ́wọ́ bíi like $1 million. So owó yẹn owó tí ẹ̀bùn wọn ni àbí owó tí wọ́n gbà padà.
Ó náà mo sọ grant àbọ̀ wọn ni, kì í ṣe pé a fún wọn, àyà wọn àbọ̀ wọn, a nígbà yẹn padà. But ẹni tó bá lo tiẹ̀ dáadáa yóò wá dé level tó yẹ pé òun náà ó lè yáwó. Ṣẹ̀yìn pé yẹn á ju nǹkan tó ń bù yẹn lọ. A lè bù yẹn 50,000, a lè bù yẹn ní 100,000, a lè bù yẹn ní 200,000. But tó bá ní lọ bí 500,000 ọ̀ọ́yà ni. Àmọ́ ẹ̀kọ́ tí wàá ti kọ́kọ́ ní àti nǹkan tí wàá tá a ti rí tó ti fi lè ta bù wọ́n ṣe yẹn ló máa qualify fún èyí tí wàá lọ gbà tó yẹ pé wọ́n á fowó èlé sílẹ̀ lélẹ̀.
Orí ìdíkà tó yà mí lẹ́nu sá.
Yes, sir.
Ní ẹ̀yà mi lẹ́nu. Lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ pírójẹ́tì à ń sọ̀nà ìjọba sábà máa ń rí tó máa ń sábà ṣe ọ̀nà jù. So most time bí èlò ń bá fẹ́ ṣe ọ̀nà personally, àwọn ìjọba sábà gbà ìjọba máa ń ṣe ìzára duty máa ṣe. But ní pipeline ẹ̀yin dá ọ̀nà freely, ẹnìkan kò sì challenge yín sára pírójẹ́tì Gbenga Olawepo Foundation náà ni àbí ọkọ̀ wò.
ibi ní ilé tí wọ́n à ń pipeline wọ́n ti wà ní mo kọ́lé yìí ilé tẹ̀wò yìí mo ti kọ́ ilé ìwé ṣe wáyé more than 20 years ago ni mo ti kọ́lé àṣẹṣẹ kọ́ ìgbà tí mo ra ilẹ̀ yìí níbi 2002 àwọn ìjọba wọn ṣe bí ní layout wọ́n sọ pé GRA phase 2 gbà yẹn pé wọ́n á ṣe gbogbo amenity àwọn ará láti gbà yẹn àtàkà dúdú lè síbi ọ̀nà dá so ní máa ń gírèdì ẹ̀ lọ́dọọdún gbogbo àwọn ọ̀nà bí wọ́n máa gírèdì ẹ̀ máa ń wò pé yàtọ̀ sí grading rẹ̀ ká tó àwa sí ni pé let's do the gbogbo àwọn drainages to control the erosion bàtà wá ṣe yẹn a rí pé owó gidi ra náà sórí àwọn kíni drainage yẹn wọn kì í ṣe owó kékeré àwọn àwòpẹ́ ok asphalt nǹkan pé kí ló wá tàbá nádúró owó ìdílé drainage náà kí ló wá kò tàbí àtà wọn ní iye báyìí ni mo ní eléyìí tá a ti náà gan kò tí wàá fẹ́ ó yà àkókò parí ẹ̀ mo jẹ́ ló gbé wa débi tá a fi ṣe asphalt yẹn kẹ́mi mo ṣe sọ mọ́ pé iṣẹ́ ìjọba ni àmọ́ aráàlú náà lè ràn ìjọba ní ọwọ́ irú ẹni tó sì ń ṣe gómìnà Kwara nísìnyí ọ̀rẹ́ mi ni òun náà ti débi ọ̀nà yìí kó tó di gómìnà ó ti wá bí more than 20 years ó mọ gbogbo ọ̀nà yìí bó ṣe rí àmọ́ mo mọ̀ pé omi pọ̀ jọ kà lọ fún wọn you know so tí ò bá ti àmọ́ níbi tá a ṣe dé náà mo mọ̀ pé ó lè wú àwọn náà lórí kan tó sọ pé àwọn máa ṣe eléyìí tó kù mo lè gbọ́ pé àwọn officials Ministry of Works kan wọ́n àwọn the other road wọ́n dẹ̀ sọ pé àwọn á fi sínú budget so that's very good irú ẹni tó ṣe gómìnà ọ̀rẹ́ mi ni so ìmọ̀ àti ẹ̀yẹ ó ṣọ̀tà so àṣé nítorí pé a fẹ́ fi ṣe àbùkù ẹ̀ a kàn ṣe nítorí pé a nídìí láti ṣe ni ọmọ rẹ̀ pò náà ó mọ̀ pé bí ṣọ̀tà òun so kò lè kàn máa ṣe wàhálà lásán tí ò nídìí.
ẹ sọ̀rọ̀ kan ní ìsọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀ tí ó bí kíní kàṣà ẹni gómìnà Kwara State Malama Abdulrahman Abdulrasaq ọ̀rẹ́ yìí ni wọ́n.
tó ti pẹ́ kò ń ṣe ọdún mẹ́wàá kì í ṣe ogún ọdún kódà kò kì í ṣe bí 30 years láti sọ̀rọ̀ bọ̀.
ó tó gẹ́ movement sir. ó tó gẹ́ movement. ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n jọ ṣe wàhálà ó tó gẹ́ movement tí wọ́n láwọn jọ wà ní ó tó gẹ́ movement ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn ní ìkùnsínú pẹ̀lú gómìnà kí ló fà á.
èmi ò sí lára wọn sóò mi lè mọ nǹkan tó fà á fún wọn bọ́n mo lè sọ pé nínú ìjọba tiwantiwa ó nọ́mà káwọn èèyàn ní ìkùnsínú ó dẹ̀ nọ́mà káwọn èèyàn ní èrò nípa bí ẹ ṣe lè ṣe nǹkan tó yàtọ̀ sí bí ẹnìkan ṣe ń ṣe nǹkan tó ń jẹ́ democracy nìyẹn bọ̀ nǹkan tí mo kàn rí tí mo ló mísì náà ni pé àwọn pátì ti kú ní Nàìjíríà mo sọ kíni kan fún ọ nísìnyí pé ọ̀rọ̀ gómìnà Abdulrahman kan lè mo ń sọ nígbà tá à ń sọ̀rọ̀ pátì pé a máa ń ṣe ètò gẹ́gẹ́ bí ẹgbẹ́ báyìí ní policy ẹgbẹ́ you understand ká ní ẹgbẹ́ function orúnú ẹgbẹ́ ló jẹ́ kí everybody ti máa sọ nǹkan tí wọn bá like irú gbàtà sọ fún ìgbà tí ẹnìyàn bá gbọ́ nìkan ní òwà di ti gbòòrò irú you understand irú gbà tí president Ọbásanjọ́ ó ti lọ fowó kún epo kò tẹ̀ bá wa sọ àní kọ́kọ́ dá padà náà gbogbo nǹkan tó bá fẹ́ sọ kó wá mọ àwọn bá sínú ẹgbẹ́ ká lọ sọ ní next meeting òun kan ò tẹ̀ ìgbọ́rọ̀ yẹn wá mọ ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn kàn kú naturally ni you know but tí ẹgbẹ́ máa function platform ẹgbẹ́ ló yẹ kí oníkálukú ti kọ́kọ́ máa sọ ìkùnsínú ẹ̀ tẹ́ bá jẹ́ the same political party but tó bá ti di pé àwọn èèyàn wọ́n ń gbé ọ̀rọ̀ lọ sínú ìgboro ó mì pé wọn ò ní àǹfààní láti máa sọ ọ̀rọ̀ nínú kọ́kọ́ọ̀sì party ibẹ̀ ni wọ́n yẹ kán ti máa sọ bọ̀ kẹ́mi ṣe sọ ìjọba tiwantiwa ó fààyè gbà kó ní kálukú express ìkùnsínú tó bá ní ara democracy náà ni.
jọ́sà nínú mi dọ̀sà ayọ̀ mi kún pẹ̀lú ìpè ìdáhùn tẹ̀ fún mi yẹn àmọ́ òṣèlú Kwara for now ń bọ̀rẹ̀ rò pé ń lọ ojú ò lè fi wo ojú wájú rẹ̀.
ó dà ọ̀rọ̀ ọjọ́ iwájú òṣèlú Kwara dà kí la jà fún a nígbà fẹ́ kẹ́nìkan kó wọn impose lórí everybody àbí kí ó tó gẹ́ yẹn kì í ṣe ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ ìjà yẹn náà ó tó gẹ́ tẹ̀yìn sọ yìí ṣe bí slogan tó yẹ gbé wá níbi ọdún mélòó ni ẹ̀ ń sìn ìjọ ọdún méje lọ ni slogan ó tó gẹ́ jáde kí slogan ó tó gẹ́ tó jáde yẹn a ti ń jà ní Kwara yẹn àwọn láwọn yìí wọ́n ja ìjà against àwọn MPN kí bàbá yẹn fi kú nígbà táwọn láwọn yìí kú tán onírú àwa náà tún gbà tá fàáfàá pẹ̀lú àwọn olóyè láti 19 àtìgbà UNCB láti ṣe CNC títí gbogbo àwọn tó wà ní APC nísìnyí àti Fagbemi ni àti Abdulrahman ṣe PDP everybody wà táwọn Sàràkí wà ní kínní àwa ni leader wọn gbà yẹn okay so ó tó gẹ̀yẹ ìjà opposition ní Nàìjíríà ní Kwara State yìí ó ju more than 30 years lọ ó tẹ̀ tún ju àwọn láwọn yìí lọ ìgbà kan làwọn Alhaji Suleiman tó ń fa pẹ̀lú àwọn NPC tálákà parapọ̀ so tẹ́yìn bá lọ ṣe research yìí dáadáa ẹ̀ mọ̀ pé ó tó kẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ní ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ struggle Kwara ó tó gẹ́ ìgbà kan nìyẹn another phase of the struggle ẹ̀ tún rí ó tó gẹ́ phase 2 nígbà tó báyà àwọn tó máa gbéra wọn ní kinní kan gbogbo ẹ̀ náà oníkálukú náà ń fẹ́ opportunity fún freedom ni nǹkan tí wọ́n á sọ pé mo rí pé ó dà ò ní pé ibi tí òṣèlú Kwara dé nísìn kò sẹ́ni kankan tó lè dé anybody sínú ságo mọ́ kò possible ìyẹn ò possible wàá sí tiẹ̀ lọ́mọ lọ ọ̀ sọ tiẹ̀ náà ni àwọn tó kú náà ó sọ tira wọn àbí nǹkan tá a kàn dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run fún ni pé Kwara ti kúrò níbi gbé ẹnìkan yọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ òun yọgò òun yàdá kìíní kan Ọlọ́run dẹ̀ níjẹ́ ká ríru àyọ̀ àdá yẹn nìkan ìgbà kan nìyẹn tẹ́ pé kódà bí àwọn ìdíje iṣẹ́ election àwọn tọ́gì lọ́bẹ̀ tí wọ́n mọ̀ gún wọn lọ́bẹ̀ irú yẹn ò ṣẹlẹ̀ mọ́ Ọlọ́run jẹ́ ká ríru ẹ̀ mọ́ a sì ní padà sí ẹ̀yìn mọ́ lórí ẹ̀ àwọn lẹ́yìn pé bóyá ní kálukú sọ̀rọ̀ lórí rédíò wọ́n búra wọn náà ni ó yẹn ṣe wàhálà ara democracy náà ni wọ́n bá bu ọ̀wọ́ náà lọ sọ tiẹ̀.
Thank you very much, sir.
God bless you.
My final question for you tonight, I'm going to make it a 2-in-1 question. Earlier when you were talking about your struggles as a student, all the things you did for the forward movement, you mentioned the North Korea journey.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in what you had to do with the grandfather of the present, should I say the leader, Kim Jong-un. And
his grandfather was Kim Il-sung.
Kim Il-sung, okay.
And then his own father they called him their leader, Kim Jong-il, before this one.
I want to believe that your journey had something about pushing towards peace or getting...
Yeah, unification of North and South Korea.
Unification of North and South Korea.
That was, there was the
your...
International Festival of Youth and Students, 13th World Festival of Youth and Students. And then they built very nice infrastructure they wanted the world to see. And then they were moving towards uniting with North and South Korea. They were one before. They wanted to be one again. And so that was their own agenda. But the IUS that's International Union of Students and the World Federation of Democratic Youth were also concerned about issue of disarmament, denuclearization of the world. Then was concerned about freedom for Africa against apartheid. South Africa was still under apartheid. So it was a whole number of subject matter against injustice and for equity. And the Koreans were hosting it. So they brought their own agenda, which was reunification.
My question is, could this be the beginning of your involvement in foreign affairs? Could it be the beginning of you being recognized by Amnesty International before they gave you that term?
No.
Prisoner of conscience?
Amnesty International recognized me as prisoner of conscience because I was detained under Decree 2 in 1989 after the anti-SAT protest. And I was not charged to court. The degree 2 means that no court can or could examine your detention, that you are going to be there forever without trial until the army people were satisfied to release you.
What did you
Detention
do?
without trial.
Well, how did you get detained? What did you do?
I was non-sparrow. And then they thought I was the de facto president because they had arrested the president, and they said he knew nothing about how anti-SAP was organized. And they came up with files that I was the mastermind of the whole thing and that they must just get me and all that. And so when they arrested some few people, they released them. Until they got me, they kept me and put me for a while. There, you know. So while I was in detention, there was an international campaign led by the International Union of Students, World Federation of Democratic Youth, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. So, and this was like, I think it was basically a few years after Mandela was named as Amnesty International Freedom of Prisoner of Conscience. 89, I think that was mine. I think Mandela was named 86, like 2 years.
So you shared the same time with Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
That is.
Ọ̀rọ̀ insecurity lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà, ọ̀rọ̀ terrorist ni àwọn agbésùnmọ̀mí, wọ́n gbé mi lóko, wọ́n ṣe everything. Ọ̀nà lérò pé Nàìjíríà fi lè bọ́yọ̀ nínú ọ̀rọ̀ insecurity.
Iṣẹ́ ọ̀nà kan, ọ̀nà tó pọ̀ ni. But ọ̀rọ̀ security orí tẹlifíṣàn kan náà ti máa ń sọ gbogbo ẹ̀. Àbí òye. But kì í ṣe nǹkan tí a lè ní solution fún.
Solution lè wà fún.
Solution wà fún dáadáa. Kì í ṣe wàhálà tó pọ̀ tí ó ṣe ṣe. Ṣé bí mo sọ ń jẹ́ sí pé àwa tá à ń lọ jà fún àwọn Liberia nígbà tí wọ́n ní full scale war nílùú wọn, ta quieting everywhere. Àwa tá bring peace pẹ̀lú the same Nigeria army ní Sierra Leone. Àti ṣe rí kì í ṣe nǹkan tá a lè ṣe. Mi sọ nǹkan gbé àga tí a lè ṣe, gbé a lè ṣe yẹn.
Solution wà fún.
Solution wà fún.
Àmọ́ kì í ṣe open place.
Kì í ṣe ń bá wọn sọ ní àmọ́ ẹni tó jẹ́ terrorist.
Tí ń wò wá.
Tá a máa sọ gbogbo.
Àgbọ̀dọ̀ tí ó láṣìírí yẹn.
Àṣírí nǹkan tó ń pè ní security ní gbogbo nǹkan tí wọ́n ń fẹnu sọ.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, àgbọ̀dọ̀ fẹnu ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀.
But solution wà.
Wà.
Solution wà.
Géèmù lélẹ̀ ẹ̀yàn tẹ́ bá jí láàárọ̀ báwo lẹ ṣe ń lò dé yín títí dalẹ́.
Èmi kọ́kọ́ máa ń yin lọ́run lógo ni.
Kọ́kọ́ yín náà lógo. Táìmù lẹ máa jí.
Ó depend. Kò yẹ kí n máa sọ lórí kámẹ́rà ìgbà tí mo ń lò. Ara security náà ni.
Ara security ni. Ẹ kọ́kọ́ máa yín lọ́run lógo.
Àmọ́ mo máa ń yin lọ́run lógo.
What's your average routine for the morning?
Yeah, I must worship God. I worship God every day. Worship as in singing, raising praises to Him for who He is and what He has done for me. I'm one who believes that we are created primarily to worship God and to show His glory. It's in the Quran, not just Christian. He said, I made the jinns and man for my own praise. It's there in the Quran. It's there in the Bible. Yes. That's the first most important job for me.
Early morning.
Yes.
Sports were like, sir.
I was playing handball in those days, but now I'm not. I don't have to spend too much time for sports now.
Oúnjẹ wo lẹ like jù dáadáa?
I like oúnjẹ kankan.
Ẹ like oúnjẹ kankan?
Kò sóúnjẹ tí mi lè jẹ.
Oúnjẹ lè jẹ.
As long as
tó bá ṣáà ti wà healthy.
decide to eat. Well, thank you very much sir, for every amazing answer you've given to us. Thank you for giving us the insight into how your background has been and all the way to this point. Thank you for every solution you've provided and everything you've given structure to. Now, if you think that we didn't ask enough questions and you would like us to come back to him or bring him back on the Bridge podcast, or you would want us to send some questions to him and have it answered, you can reach out to us on our social media handles. We're on Instagram at the Bridge_podcast 247. You can reach out to us on Facebook at the Bridge Podcast 247, or you can drop your comments on our YouTube channel at the Bridge Podcast 247. You've learned so much, and I hope you're inspired by this to know that you can't just be afraid of everything. You can work hard and move towards it, and you shouldn't be a complainer, but rather someone who finds a solution. Thank you so much for this wonderful episode, and thank you for staying this long. My name is Obasa Olubanke, and I am signing out.
Ẹ ṣeun bí ojú ọ̀nà látàárọ̀ tá a jọ ń gbádùn ara wa. Inú mi dùn ayọ̀ mi kún ipò kálukú tirẹ́kọ̀ kan àbí méjì kọ́ ní gbogbo dáṣọ látàtàárọ̀ yìí. A pàdé lọ́jọ́ míì ọjọ́ rẹ̀ lérè ètò yín ètò wa ní Afárá. Abọ́lájí ọmọ Galadimọ̀ ló kọ tèmi. Double ambassador. Orin náà o, ire kàbìtì lọ́ọ̀dẹ̀ yìí.